All right, hey everyone. My name is Rajavanya Subramanian. Like Casey said, I'm joining in from La Réunion. It's a French island, and I'm in GMT +4, so it's quite late here.
Wait, say that again. Say that
I
again. Say the name of it again.
La Réunion. It's La Réunion, like
La
reunion,
And in
Reunion.
right?
Texas,
Okay.
you would call it
Okay.
reunion.
Yes,
Right. No, we
reunion.
call it reunion.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Raj.
yeah. So I'm just gonna quickly share my screen. All right.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Yes. All right. All right. I have more information about my introduction in the slides. So today I'm going to talk about how to use AI to create original, authentic sounding content rapidly. So this is going to be a tactical workflow that I use myself, and I've used it with a couple of clients, and I really like it. And I hope you guys like it too. And I'll show you why it's been a game changer for me. A little bit about me. I'm a 37-year-old software developer turned marketer living in La Réunion, France. That's me and our little family. So I thought that was relevant here because we are with our CTOX folks. And in case you guys were wondering, so that's where La Réunion is. At a certain level of zoom, you won't even see it on the map. So you'll have to zoom in further, and then the island appears. And it's between Madagascar and Mauritius. And here are a few photos to brag about where I live. It's really
Oh, wow,
beautiful.
man.
A lot of untouched nature. And I heard that New York Times named it the hiking capital of the world. Unfortunately, we can't go swimming a lot because there's a lot of shark attacks. So that's something about my island. A little bit more about my career. At the age of 18, I started my first decade in software development. I've developed games. It ended with me being the lead game developer. There's a few screenshots of me on my games. Some of them I ported some famous games to iPad, and a lot of them hit Apple top 10 in multiple major countries. I also tried releasing my own game that failed horribly, but with a lot of lessons. At the age of 23, I was made partner in a software development firm funded by IDG and Sequoia. I thought it was a key point in my career. And now it's called Sequoia, has renamed to called Peak XV, where I was managing a game dev services team of 20 people. And then the second decade, I'd say, is in marketing. It started at 2016. I was living in Bangkok, where I had my final full-time job, and then moved to I started out as a freelancer. I worked with EdTech, particularly in DevOps space, online media, which covered the Asian PEVC space. I worked with fitness membership websites, and finally premium B2B services in the automotive and outdoor events. My core competency, I would say, is inbound websites, landing page, conversion rate optimization, and copywriting.
Love it, man.
Okay, so let's get into the actual thing. So starting with what I would call is the AI content crisis. A lot of us know this. I found this on the internet, and every time I read this, even while practicing for this, it made me chuckle. And I think we have all seen posts like this, really cringy content on LinkedIn and in many places, right? You guys can read it yourself. And then I found these just to show more of such content. And I've received such comments even on my own LinkedIn, which is just obviously ChatGPT. And apparently there's a Reddit subreddit called LinkedIn Lunatics,
Yeah.
where people have been discussing this. So I just had a lot of fun just researching for this talk. So we've all seen this AI content that screams, I used ChatGPT, right? So here's the real problem. We want to use AI for efficiency, but you can't use it for the content that matters most because it sounds like this. What do I mean by content that matters most? Content that builds trust, connects, and converts. And what do I mean by that? Some examples. I think case studies are great, content pieces that do this, pages that explain why you do something in a company or in any context, in a business context, about us pages. These are all some examples of things that exude your personality, can build trust, and helps really in the conversion and helps you stand out. Just to reiterate the same thing, it's the stuff that shows your passion and unique perspective, stories about why you started doing something, why you do something, the way you do it, what makes your approach different, and real client transformation stories. Right? So this is where you make or break trust. Right? So you're stuck with two options. Either AI is crappy, so you write it yourself, or if you don't want to write it, you have to use AI anyway. So why does option A fail? Because when you want to write content yourself, probably writing about your why feels a bit vulnerable. This is true with my own case. Even while preparing for this presentation, I was about to show you some transcripts, which I'll show later. I felt a little bit of a sensation in my stomach because I was feeling like a little bit exposed, right? So I think all of us can relate to that. Maybe you think, am I bragging? Am I being too emotional? You might second guess every sentence. So as a result, what we write becomes generic corporate speak. You play safe and it becomes soft and becomes generic. Regular AI, you feed it boring structured bullet points. AI really can't capture the passion in your voice. There's no context about real stories behind your work. And the result, again, the same thing, just phrased differently, content that could be about anybody's business, right? So you just start looking like a commodity in some way, and you're not able to really differentiate between it. So what's the third option? What if you could just talk about your business the way you do when someone asks you, so what do you do? You're just having a conversation, normal conversation with somebody, and AI could capture that energy and structure it properly. So the solution, I call it the voice first method. So you record yourself talking freely about your work. I've done it many times myself. I've done it even for this presentation. I recorded, I think, about a 16-minute voice memo, and then I'll show the process. So there's no structure, there's no script. Rambling is completely allowed. You can go off tangent. You don't have to worry about that. When you write, I feel like sometimes I start somewhere and then I keep going somewhere and then I end up somewhere else, and then it's really doesn't work. When I say no script, there is a little caveat there. When I work with clients, when I train my team to interview somebody, I do give some open-ended questions that guide towards getting the content that I want. I can share it with you. It's generally just very questions that just asks why they did something. Like the famous question goes, ask why 5 times. Sometimes I ask about why certain decisions were made. Just curiosity can also help you build up these questions when you're doing it for somebody else. When you're doing it for yourself, I don't think there's any script necessary. You can just ramble. And AI transforms your authentic voice into polished content. I'm going to show you the exact prompts that I use to get this. You get to keep your personality, but add professional structure to your content. This, I think, is the main differentiator of this method, because nobody wants AI-generated generic content anymore. So we want content that sounds authentic. And when I generate it, or when I ask AI to rewrite it, and when I read it back, I want to feel it like, yeah, this is something that sounds like me, right? And not like somebody else. And that's exactly what we're going for here. So why this? No more staring at blank pages. No more does this sound professional enough. Your genuine excitement comes through when you are just talking freely without really thinking about stuff about content creation or editing or any step in the process. Stories flow naturally the way you talk to somebody. AI handles structure, you provide the soul. Some ideal use cases, case studies. Again, I'm just reiterating the same stuff. About pages that doesn't sound like anyone else's, sounds authentic. Why choose us against somebody else? LinkedIn posts that people actually want to read, and service descriptions of what you provide that really bring out the experiences and doesn't sound dry and just stick to facts. So how it works, here's the actual recipe, simple steps. First, what I do is I try to trigger the memories in case of case studies. For example, I try to open up, if it's a visual product, I open up photos, I go back to videos. It really depends on the niche that you're working on. And then that starts to jog their memories. They start to talk about it, and I just start the record button, right? And then we start to have the conversation. Hit record, tell the story like you're talking to a friend, and finally transcribe. So now that Apple has released built-in transcribe option, if you guys don't know, you can do it right with your iPhone or with your Mac. If you're on Windows, you'll have to find an alternate solution. And then transform with specific AI prompts. If you guys were not aware of this, in Mac, you have a voice memo recorder. And then once you record something, you can just hit that button on the top right corner and it does everything locally. It doesn't even go to the cloud or anything. Okay, so time for some demo and screenshots. So this is 1,500-word blog post that I wrote, we can say, I generated. And so this is the experimental blog I started, which was called Marketing to Tech Teams, because I thought, I've been a developer myself. I know how developers think. So And so I've been generating content on a few companies that I admire, and maybe the CTOX folks might recognize some of these companies. One of the companies that I really admire is PostHog, and they're really one of a kind company, and everything about their website is just completely new, fresh, and personality. I don't think it's a repeatable model, so I don't think it's a viable business model to copy, but there's still a lot of things to learn from it. So there's just a couple of screenshots. You guys can go and see this. I think it came out really neat. You can read the info. And this is how the transcript looked. I trimmed it because I was a little embarrassed, but you can see there's typos. It says healthy, freer in your company. It's actually free tier in the company, in your product. So I just open it up and I just keep rambling. And then that gave rise to that. How does it happen? So some magic prompts. So I feed in the content. Maybe I could just quickly jump to an actual demo. I'll share the Claude project that I actually used. There you go. This is an example, right? So I just paste this, and this is the rough transcript of everything that I recorded with my voice for this particular presentation. And then finally, I say, please analyze this transcript for a short presentation project I'm about to do. I need you to first structure it so I know what to do next. Also help with slides and their main purpose. And during the prompt, sometimes I ask AI for help to fill in the gaps. So I just prompt that in this, and it gave me this, basically. So this is my presentation. Obviously, I redid a few things. The first,
just to be clear, you built this presentation today just based on a conversation. All the content came from just conversation into AI recorder.
Yeah, my voice memos, right?
Yeah, right.
So
love it. So
yeah, I use voice memos. I sat down for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and I just rambled on about all my ideas that I had in my head. It was not at all structured, because sometimes I'll forget something. And AI is really good at structuring it, right? It'll just take it and group it all together like a really good assistant. And then, so I can just move really fast with this. So that's basically what happened. The first iteration was not really perfect. I'm not going to say this is absolutely perfect. I did find some logical fallacies, and then I thought slide 3 came in abruptly without any bridge. So I gave it as a feedback, and then it actually fixed it. The flow became really good. It was much better than before. And that's what you've been seeing with this presentation right now. Right. So yeah, so it's an example. I'm going to go back to my window. All right, so a few other magic prompts. So sometimes I feed in the transcript and I say, if I ramble about too many things that's interconnected, I start to have a conversation. I just say, find all content themes and suggest title ideas from this transcript. And usually it just comes out with a bunch of stuff. And then sometimes I focus on one item and then flesh it out, publish it either as a blog post, social media post, or maybe an email, whatever. And then maybe later I can use the other titles for other stuff. And then I just say, rewrite in storytelling format without losing the original tone and voice, without losing the original tone and voice is something that I use a lot, so that the content comes out sounding exactly like how I speak. And there's one more tip I'd like to share, which is sometimes what I do is, especially when working with somebody else whose time I might not have as frequently, and if I've had a 1 hour or 2 hour time of theirs and I've had a lot of questions and I've transcribed everything, what I would do is I'll say, analyze this transcript and create a voice template for future content. Why I do this is because I've found oftentimes that it's really hard to replicate the founder's passion, as I call it. Like, the way a founder describes their business and the services is just something that's very hard to replicate, I feel. And that's the reason I do this when I speak to a founder, and when they give it, I just create a voice template, and then Claude will remember it, and then I can generate future content that didn't even come from them. Sometimes we'll have to create content that hasn't really been recorded by them, but it'll still end up sounding like them. So you get that content consistency out. There's some prompt variants that I used that I just copy pasted from my Claude. It's the same thing, just put together in a different form. So I say, rewrite this, I give it the target post, and then I say again, maintaining my original tone and voice. And I say rewrite it mostly to only restructure for storytelling and keep the reader engaged. So it finds a problem hook within the statement that I do, and then it builds it up and then it resolves it so that the storytelling structure comes out automatically. And this is the same thing I already explained. Just an example about using my own voice, where I also generated a fictional case study, and it analyzed my transcript and it just wrote something that when I look at it, I think, wow, that looks like something that I would have exactly written. Right. So I encourage you guys try it, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised to see the kind of content that comes out using this workflow. And that's it.
I love it. I love it. So when is the utility? Okay, I have a project that I'm working on actually right now at this moment. So it's with an entrepreneur, and they are wanting to build their personal brand a bit. So successful entrepreneur, 9-figure and annual revenue from their businesses, and just trying to like grow their influence. And how would you use this with them? What would be your process to get their voice?
Usually I'd first schedule a call and ask a bunch of questions about their business and their products and services, whatever they're selling. And my question would often go towards trying to bring about their story about why they do this, what's the purpose behind it, and things like that. And it would also delve into things like where they found the gap, how they want to be different from their competitors, those kind of questions. So that'll build the base content that I can use in multiple places about us, wherever that can bring out their personality, I would say. You can also use it in LinkedIn, right, to tell your stories. That would be the first thing. If it's a little bit more matured business and they've done some work, then I'll also dive into old project case studies, their memories about what they did in the past. Like I said, I would bring up photos or videos, and then I'll ask them to just talk about it. Sometimes it has even worked that I would just tell them, can you make a Loom? Just open it up and just talk about it. Whatever comes up, it's fine. And I explain them the process, of course, so that they understand there's nothing right or wrong. I just tell them, speak about this, speak everything that you remember. And what I tend to see is that naturally, when I work with passionate founders, they tend to remember really tiny details and the stories behind it. And it turns really, really interesting. And and after that, I take it and I basically use the prompts. Here, I find content themes and then use it to build a brand either for them personally, or I adapt it for the company, because a company's brand, I feel, especially at a small size, is often just an extension of the founder's brand.
So, love it. Yeah. That's great. I love that. Yeah, the founder typically has so much like good inflection and interesting stories and stuff. And to be able to capture that in a natural way seems like a really great way to do it. Thanks for that. Got a couple questions. Mel just said that she has a recording with a CEO and she has to write an article. So she's going to use the recording in this way. That's awesome. Graham says, so you're using the Mac or iPhone transcript and then copying the output into Claude. That's your process?
Yeah, correct. That's exactly.
Right. Yeah. I would assume if you use other apps outside of like the native app for your platform, then you potentially run into latency and issues with that. And it would just be so frustrating to lose it. Like Claude disconnects from the internet for a second or something and your audio loses. So I like this idea a lot of keeping it all in one platform at once. All right. So Kunal says, don't you think how someone talks and how they write may be very different styles?
So this is a valid question. And you need to be mindful about who you're talking to and who you want to appeal to. For example, you might not talk to a prospect the same way you talk to somebody who's super close, right? So it really depends on that context. So before you start talking, it helps to just imagine the kind of person that's in front of you, but still keep the conversation natural, right? So that it doesn't feel like you're sitting for a writing project, but rather you're just talking. Right. So probably you're explaining to somebody trade show or something. You just meet up with somebody and then how would you talk to them about your business products and services? That's a tip that you can remember so that it's adapted.
Love it. Yeah, great. Last question here, then we're going to move on. Michael says, wouldn't a transcript lose things like emphasis and speed?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems even in my own transcript. I don't know what to say to that.
Right. But what you lose, you also make up in speed. And it is a bit imperfect.
Yeah, it works. It has worked for me. And in terms of efficiency, I think I really like this process. Yes,
Yeah.
those things do go away, but yeah.
And I think if we look ahead as the future is not AI doing all the work, but people with AI get more work done, then I think this makes a lot of sense. I think to get to the point of AI understanding inflection and tone and speed and that kind of stuff is we're a couple cycles away from that maybe. But I think pairing a smart person with tools like this, I think creates a faster outcome that's high quality for the client.
I'd like to answer one more question. It says, why Claude? So recently, I created 2 lead magnets at really high speed when the founder was away, traveling, probably having meetings. And I took the content for the lead magnet, and then I did the same thing. I asked him to do a Loom, and I asked him to speak through a bunch of points. And then there's a whole workflow. Then I'll get it content based, and then I'll give it to the graphic designer. But I tried OpenAI, and OpenAI, the term is hallucination, I think. So hallucinated a lot of facts, whereas Claude really sticks to the actual original content. OpenAI just added stuff that was not really in the text when I gave my prompts, whereas Claude was a lot more accurate. So I just stick to it for content creation a lot. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Raj. Appreciate it. Thank you also for staying up so late for us. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure. Yeah.